Our book this month is, I think, a really special one. It's Genderqueer by Maia Kobabe, who I'm really happy to have here next to me to talk about this book. You guys like?
Are you going to
this?
sneak in for name correction?
Yeah.
Maia Kobabe.
Okay, Kobabe. I'm sorry.
No, absolutely no worries. Almost no one gets it right the first time. And I think practicing it my entire life, correcting people, was really good practice to correct people with my pronouns as an adult.
Yeah. Before we really start, I want to apologize in advance because I'm sure at some point I'm going to ask something dumb or misasked because I'm a 55-year-old straight white guy and it's hard for me to figure stuff out sometimes. So
I am not worried about that at all.
Cool.
Because first of all, I did volunteer. I wrote this book. And I very intentionally stepped into the role of someone who is going to be answering these questions. So it's very welcome. And I also any question that is asked out of a place of genuine desire to understand another human experience, I'd say is a good question.
Yeah. Why comics? Go back. Go. No. I mean, I mean it more like
why in my life.
Yeah.
I was totally thinking just book illustration, kind of much more fine arty direction. And I had a children's book manuscript that I was trying to push that no one was interested in. And I was hearing things like, oh, you work on your portfolio and you submit for 5 years or 7 years or 9 years, and then publishers from above deigns to give you a book deal. And I was like, I can't wait that long. I gotta be making books right now. I went to my first comic conventions. I went to WonderCon and Alternative Press Expo when they were both here still in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. I had my first little 5-page little stapled together, little tiny comic that I'd made. And people were like, oh, you made a comic? Welcome, you're a comics author. And people would I'd go up to people and I'd be like, oh, I made this comic, do you maybe want to look at it? And they'd be like, oh, do you want to trade? And Ed Luce, who's a local author who writes Lovable Oaf, traded me the full color issue 1 of Lovable Oaf for my 5-page little thing that I ran off, and treated me like such a professional. And so I really felt like children's books was this walled garden with a moat and a gate, and it was trying to keep me out. Whereas comics was like a hug, and it was welcoming me in. Yeah, so after a couple of years after undergrad, I audited a class that was taught by Matt Sillity, who is now the chair of the MFA in comics program at CCA, but that did not exist yet. And so I audited a class with him, and I loved it so much, and that's when I started a webcomic called The Thief's Tale, which I worked on for many years and is completely in a hiatus right now. And he, halfway through the class, was like, can you keep a secret? And I was like, yes. And he was like, I'm trying to start this MFA program at CCA. Would you be interested in applying for it? I was like, absolutely. So I was right in on the ground floor of that. So I applied in the first ever class and graduated from there in 2015. And the end of the program, CCA bought a lot of tables at shows, and I got to table with Ed Luce, who was one of my thesis advisors, and it was just this beautiful moment of you were the person who for the first person who made me feel like a real player in or a real person trying to do comics, and now here 4 years later I'm behind the table and we're tabling next to each other and we're selling our stuff right next to each other.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I was just comics, I love you forever. I'm in. So, yeah.
But the scene with your aunts.
Yes.
I don't know the right way to put what her complaint was in terms of. I mean, I think it has to do with being a feminist at a certain age.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is that a common thing that you encounter?
Yeah, the section with my aunt. That's a big piece. And if you ask me, what one person were you most thinking of as the audience for your book, it's my aunt who's in the book. So when I was first coming out as Nonbinary, I figured this is my Aunt Sherry. We're very close. We talk a lot. We have the same taste in books, and we've been nerding out since I could learn to read. So I figured, oh, well, she's going to get this right away. She probably knows more queer and trans people than anyone else in my family. It's she's going to be in my corner right away. And that wasn't quite the case. She actually struggled with it maybe more than some of my other family members because she'd actually thought about it a little bit more. So I would say that my aunt had some, what I might call proto-TERF beliefs. But she very much was saying, look, this is a thing that I feel. but I recognize that my feelings on this are probably outdated. They're coming from kind of a while back in the community, and I'm very open to new information about this. She would say things like, please, like, recommend me some reading. Like, do you have any, like, who are your favorite trans authors? Like, what book should I be reading? And we were both, like, again, we were committed to the relationship of, like, respect and care, and so we were both willing to sit down and hear each other's sides and have a conversation about it, knowing that we both loved each other, and so that it was a safe space, even if we disagreed on things. Some, like, feminists, which somewhat Venn diagrams with lesbians, but not as 100% overlapping, of a certain era, sometimes have beliefs that are trans-exclusive beliefs, that are, like,
Sure.
It's as a feeling of that trans women should not be allowed in women's only spaces, that a trans woman is going to somehow make that space, like, less safe. This is a real bummer of a belief. It's hard because it's often coming from a place of really deep pain. A lot of times the person who feels that way has been really hurt by the world.
Sure.
And that person deserves to feel safe. But so does the woman who happens to be trans, who may also have been really injured by the world.
Right.
And it's this place where people's traumas are directly sort of like hitting into each other and creating even more trauma for everyone, which is just really sad. This is just like a place of conflict that I don't know. Maybe time will resolve it, though unfortunately there are, like, also young people who are actually picking up these beliefs from their elders, so the beliefs aren't just going to, like, slowly totally fade out. They actually are being reintroduced at, like, the intro level as well. When I first started using the EMR pronouns, I was very militant about using them in every circumstance, and I've become much more choose my battlesy about it. There are times when it feels really productive to introduce them and to start a conversation about it, and there are other times where it does not feel productive. And honestly, I'm better off saving my energy for the productive times. Like, I remember I tried to use them at the dentist office.
Okay.
Is dude gender neutral?
Such a good question. Yeah. I use dude and man a lot. I'm from California. Yeah. I am fine being called dude, and I will call other non-binary friends dude, but if they're like, I don't really like being called dude, I'll be like, okay, I won't. And I will try my very best not to. And if I slip, I will say, ugh, sorry.
You're telling us your truth in a way that we can not just grasp, but we can internalize in a way that if you had made a video of it, I would probably have bounced off it, to be honest, you know?
Yeah.
But by being able to live in your head and again, see, oh, you're just as much of a geek nerd as I am. Holy shit, we've got all these things in common. So, wow, I actually get what you're saying. You know, it's important. And so I really want to thank you for making this book and for being brave enough to do it and for sharing it with us. Yeah.